Danhausen's Curses are supposed to be a fun, recurring gag in a wrestling storyline, but in reality, they're dangerous enough to end careers and even blow up an entire promotion. When Danhausen cursed the Young Bucks in 2022, it was supposed to be a joke, but just months later, the biggest backstage brawl in wrestling history tore AEW apart. When he cursed Adam Cole, Cole suffered the injury that permanently put him on the shelf. A cursed William Regal left AEW and never came back. Danhausen's curses have always been used for comic relief and are one of the more lighthearted aspects of pro wrestling, like R-Truth's constant comedy mix-ups or even Boogeyman eating worms. But during Danhausen's stint in AEW, the people he cursed also suffered much darker fates in real life. It's the strangest pattern in pro wrestling, and nobody's talking about it. Today, we're going to look at AEW's real-life implications of Danhausen's comedy curse and what it means that the only man who beat the curse was the one who was already at rock bottom. Subscribe in Swahili. Danhausen is the biggest star in pro wrestling right now, all on the strength of a tongue-in-cheek gimmick where he claims to have supernatural powers. At the heart of those powers is Danhausen's famed curse, which he has used successfully over the years in various promotions against some of your favorite wrestlers. Victims of Danhausen's curses in 2026 include The Miz, Kit Wilson, Dominic Mysterio, and most recently JD McDonough, who was electrocuted immediately after a Danhausen hex. No adult human being actually believes Danhausen has powers, but because of his A1 likability, people all around the world are willing to suspend their disbelief. And while Danhausen's curse works in storyline, where it's more protected than most finishers these days, he rose to mainstream prominence when the curses began working in real life. The New York Knicks broke their own 53-year drought when they won the NBA championship after being cursed, then uncursed by Danhausen. Suddenly, the curse went from a campy WWE storyline to a legitimate source of power that turned the NBA on its head. But if you're really paying attention, Danhausen's curses over the years have come with real consequences that are darker than you think. On an episode of AEW Dynamite Beach Break in 2022, Danhausen cursed Adam Cole, costing Cole his first singles loss in AEW. Unfortunately, this was just the beginning of a run of bad luck that would go on to claim Cole's career. In June of 2022, Adam Cole suffered a severe concussion after Forbidden Door. He attempted to return in August, but he went back on the shelf by September, where he spent the rest of the year recovering from concussion-like symptoms. By 2023, Adam Cole returned with a clean bill of health. Even better, he was in AEW's hottest storyline alongside Maxwell Jacob Friedman, where the babyface heel duo became strange bedfellows and later best friends. Through this comedy main event storyline, both Cole and MJF were destined for superstardom. Adam Cole and MJF were on top of the world until Cole suffered a freak injury in September of 2023 on Dynamite. Cole works one of the more physical and dangerous styles in wrestling, but the injury didn't even happen while throwing a mid-air superkick or even doing a Panama Sunrise. This was a non-wrestling injury and a freak accident where Cole jumped off a ramp and shattered his ankle. The injury was so severe, Cole had to receive a cadaver bone donation. From there, plans for AEW's biggest and best angle were abruptly derailed. With Cole bound to a wheelchair, Better Than You Bebe became a shell of itself until Adam ultimately turned heel and revealed himself as the mysterious masked devil who was antagonizing MJF for months. Now the leader of the short-lived, undisputed Kingdom stable, the Devil storyline fell flat and Cole violently fell down the card even after he was cleared to return. What followed was even more heartbreaking. On the July 10th broadcast of Collision, Kyle Fletcher hit a stiff brainbuster on Adam Cole, causing head trauma. Cole was forced to forfeit the TNT Championship ahead of a scheduled title defense against Fletcher at All In. Adam Cole has not wrestled since, and the belief is he's strongly considering in-ring retirement amid a history of head injuries. Now, it's downright reckless to blame Danhausen for the downfall of Adam Cole's in-ring career, but it's also impossible to ignore the pattern of Danhausen's curses plaguing its AEW victims outside of storylines. In fact, Danhausen's curse on Cole continued a bizarre theme where not only did the curse work immediately on Impact, but the effects lingered in real life 8 months later. This was the case when Danhausen cursed William Regal, and the result was stranger. William Regal was a member of the Blackpool Combat Club, and during a harmless segment after Dynamite went off the air in April of 2022, Danhausen hexed the former King of the Ring after he refused to hand over his suit. Everybody from the crowd to the typically stoic Blackpool Combat Club to Regal himself sold the curse. There were chants of "holy shit." The Blackpool Combat Club scrambled in fear. Regal sold the curse like he had cerebral palsy. It was all just a silly post-show segment for those who bought a ticket to Dynamite, until it wasn't. By the end of that same year, William Regal requested his AEW release in December to be reunited with WWE and, more importantly, his son Charlie Dempsey, who had signed with NXT. Regal was an integral part of the Blackpool Combat Club, and his presence as a manager gave them the credibility they needed as a stable of no-nonsense shooters. But after less than 1 year with the promotion, Regal was out of his contract and back in with the Fed. Danhausen was 2 for 2 in AEW, and the third curse brought down the entire company. In February of 2022, Danhausen cursed the Young Bucks on an episode of Rampage during their match against Roppongi Vice. As a result, the AEW EVPs immediately took a tear of tope suicidas from Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. The Bucks went on to win the match, but they lost the war against Danhausen. A little less than 8 months later, CM Punk lost his shit at a now infamous all-out media scrum in September of 2022. Punk directed most of his ire toward the Young Bucks, AEW's wrestler executives whom he claimed couldn't even manage a target. The Young Bucks didn't take kindly to this, and what followed was a brawl out, where Punk ally Ace Steel threw a chair at Nick Jackson and blackened his eye. The Young Bucks were suspended indefinitely, while Punk was fired by AEW the following year. Punk's ousting led to a downturn in ratings and attendance for AEW that they are still experiencing to this day, all while the Young Bucks' biggest op and one of Danhausen's best friends thrive in WWE. Punk main evented his first WrestleMania in 2025, the same year when the Young Bucks, in storyline, lost their EVP status following a loss to Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay at All In, which drew just 22,000 fans in Globe Life Field. This was less than half of the 46,000 fans in Wembley Stadium the year before, which in and of itself was way down from the 73,000 fans in attendance in 2023. In 2024, the Young Bucks attempted to respond to a viral CM Punk interview by airing the actual footage of Punk brawling with Young Bucks ally Jack Perry during the Brawl In. The stunt backfired as it only proved CM Punk's account of events to be accurate, all while the ratings crumbled after the short-term pop of airing the Brawl In footage on Dynamite. There's no doubt that Danhausen's curse is every bit as effective in storyline as it is IRL. 4 men cursed, 3 careers upended. But there was one man that the curse couldn't touch. Jon Moxley was cursed by Danhausen on Dynamite in February 2022. Of course, Moxley immediately took a dive from Wheeler Yuta as the tides turned in their match thanks to a very nice, very evil helper. For most wrestlers, this curse would affect Mox as a shoot, but it didn't. Even using the 8-month rule, 8 months after being Danhausened, Jon Moxley was a world champion by October. It could be argued that Mox's best year in AEW came in 2022, where he wrestled 63 matches across multiple promotions, more than anybody in AEW. Moxley won the AEW World Championship on 3 occasions in 2022, which was the same year he formed the Blackpool Combat Club alongside Wheeler Yuta, Bryan Danielson, and William Regal. Moxley was actually hit with multiple Danhausen curses during Danhausen's reign of terror in 2022, and while it did affect Mox's stablemates like Regal, Jon Moxley was rubber and Danhausen's curse was glue. The curse had no power over a man who already survived his own demons. Mox's real curse happened before he ever even crossed paths with Danhausen, because in 2021, he took a leave of absence from AEW to enter rehab due to substance abuse. Already at rock bottom, Moxley went on a much-needed healing journey, and he returned in January of 2022 as a new man and a sober-ish star. Mox didn't only survive the Danhausen curse, he thrived. After surviving the very real curse of addiction, a satanic hex was no match for a man who had already been to hell and back. As we speak, Mox is a reigning AEW Continental Champion, and he even carried the company in 2025 as world champion for most of the year, albeit in a terrible storyline. 5 men cursed, 1 immune, and the one who survived is the guy most familiar with his own demons. You can call it a coincidence, you can call it the timeline of AEW's dysfunction, but the pattern is too tight, the timeline is too clean, and the one outlier is too perfect to fully dismiss. Tony Khan had a guy cursing his top stars and watching them fall one by one, and his response was to bench Danhausen instead of protecting his roster. Classic Tony Khan. The one time he should have been superstitious by pleasing Danhausen, he chose spite. Danhausen's curse was undefeated before Moxley and remains undefeated in WWE, but there will always be one big, bald blemish. This is made more impressive considering how Danhausen's powers helped the New York Knicks win an NBA championship after a half-century drought. And for more on that story, check out this video.